be all there. It was bad enough having an invalid brother, but having one who was possibly not all there was unbearable. However, one afternoon as I watched him, he looked straight at me, and he grinned. I skipped down the echoing halls, shouting, "Mama, Mama, he smiled, he's all there!" When he finally learned to crawl, he always crawled backwards, just like a doodle bug. So I began to call him Doodle. And I guess renaming my brother was the kindest thing I ever did for him, because nobody expects much from someone called Doodle. Although Doodle learned to crawl, he showed no signs of walking. When Doodle was 5 years old, I was embarrassed having a brother of that age who couldn't walk, so I set out to teach him. Every day that summer, we went to Old Woman's Swamp, and I put him on his feet at least 100 times. Finally, one day, after many weeks of practicing, he stood alone for a few seconds. When he fell, I grabbed him in my arms, and I hugged him, our laughter pealing through the swamp like a ringing bell. Now we knew it could be done. Once I had succeeded in teaching Doodle to walk, I began to believe in my own power. I taught Doodle to climb trees, to swim, and to row boats. And whenever we went anywhere together, I walked fast, and I made him keep up. So we came to that club of seasons. It was a hot, sultry day, and Daddy, Mama, Doodle, and I were seated at the dining room table having lunch. Suddenly, from out in the yard came a strange croaking noise. Rushing out to the bleeding tree, we saw on the topmost branch a bird with long legs and scarlet feathers perched precariously. Its wings hung loosely. The bird began to flutter, and amid much flapping, a spray of flying feathers, it tumbled down, landing at our feet with a thud. "It's dead," Mama said. "It's a scarlet ibis. The storm must have brought it here. Come on, let's go finish lunch." "I'm not hungry," said Doodle, and he knelt down beside the bird. "I'm going to bury him." Daddy, Mama, and I went back to the dining room table, but we watched Doodle through the open door as he buried the bird in the flower garden. Later that day, Doodle and I hurried off to Horsehead Landing, got into a skiff, and floated down the creek with the tide. After we had drifted a long way, I put the oars in place and made Doodle row back against the tide. Black clouds began to gather in the southwest, and he kept trying to pull the oars a little faster. When we reached the landing, the sun disappeared and darkness descended almost like night. The lightning was near now, and from fear, Doodle walked so close to me he kept stepping on my heels. The faster I walked, the faster he walked, so I began to run. The rain was roaring through the pines, and then, like a bursting Roman candle, a gun tree ahead of us was shattered by a bolt of lightning. When the deafening peal of thunder had died, I heard Doodle calling to me. Suddenly, a streak of cruelty awakened within me. I ran till I could hear Doodle's voice no more. I hadn't run too far before I became tired. I stopped, and I waited for Doodle. The sound of rain was everywhere. As I waited, I peered through the downpour, but no one came. Finally, I went back and found him huddled beneath the nightshade bush beside the road. His face was buried in his arms, which were rested on his drawn-up knees. "Let's go, Doodle!" He didn't answer. So I placed my hand on his forehead and lifted his head. Limply, he fell backwards onto the earth. He had been bleeding from the mouth, and his neck and the front of his shirt were stained a brilliant red. "Doodle! Doodle!" I cried, but there was no answer, just the rain. He lay there awkwardly with his head thrown back. His little legs never seemed so fragile, so thin. I began to weep, and the tear-blurred vision before me looked very familiar. In the pounding storm, I threw my body to the earth above his, and for a long, long time, I lay there crying, sheltering my fallen scarlet ibis from the rain.
Did you hear that? It is terrible to always be trembling like this. But here, on the roof of the opera house, I am safe. I am in the sky, in the open air, in the light. I have never seen him by daylight. It must be awful. In fact, I heard him for 3 months without seeing him. The first time I heard it, I thought that adorable voice was singing in another room. I went to look for it, but couldn't find it. But it not only sang, it spoke to me and answered my questions. I thought it was the angel of music which my poor father promised me upon his death. And the voice said that yes, it was the angel of music, and it would give me singing lessons. Yes, I soon learned the truth. But it is not so easy to rid myself of the nightmare. I was not caught in the nightmare until I learned the truth. When Christine Daae first came to the Paris Opera, she never expected to find herself in the center of a strange affair involving the voice behind her dressing room mirror. But on the night of the performance of Faust, after the prima donna croaked like a toad on the stage, after the chandelier shattered over the heads of the audience, Christine learned the truth. The voice behind her mirror beckoned to her as she eagerly followed, straight through the mirror and into the darkness on the other side, and into the arms of a man wrapped in a large black cloak and wearing a mask that hid his whole face. The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. I descended into the cellars on the back of a white horse, and we crossed the lake in a little boat. My gruesome escort rode with a quick stroke, and his eyes beneath the mask never left me. When we reached the other side, he lifted me up. I cried aloud, and then fell silent. I had been set down in a drawing room that seemed to be decorated, adorned, and furnished with nothing but flowers. Flowers both magnificent and stupid. And in the midst of these flowers stood the man in the cloak and the mask. And he said to me, "Do not be afraid, Christine. You are in no danger, so long as you do not touch my mask." And that voice which I recognized, it was a man. All this time I had been deceived. I began to cry, and he must have understood the cause for my distress, for he knelt down before me, and he said, "It is true, Christine. I am not an angel, nor a ghost, nor a genius. I am Eric. He loves me. He lays at my feet in intense and tragic love. He has carried me off for love. He has imprisoned me with him underground for love. But he respects me. He crawls, he groans, he weeps. He confesses his cheat. And when I told him that I could only despise him if he did not then and there give me my liberty, he offered it. He offered to show me the mysterious road. And then he rose too. And I was made to remember that while he was no angel, nor a ghost, nor a genius, he remained the voice, for he sang to me, and I stayed. I awakened in his house. I ate with him. He said he loved me, but would not tell me so unless I allowed him, and the rest of the time would be devoted to music. We began to sing the duet from Othello. Suddenly, the catastrophe was upon us. Love, fear, hatred burst out upon us in harrowing cries. And suddenly, I felt a need to see the face of the voice. If I live for 100 years, I shall never forget that terrible cry of grief and rage which he uttered when that horrible sight appeared before my eyes. He began to pace around on the floor, muttering incoherent curses at me. And then he leaned over me and he said, "Look, you wanted to see? Feast your eyes, glut your soul on my accursed ugliness. You are not content to hear me sing. No, you had to see the face of the voice. You women are so inquisitive." No, that I am built up of death from head to foot. And it is a corpse that loves you and adores you and will never, ever leave you. Look, I'm not laughing now. I'm crying. Crying for you, Christine, who have torn off my mask and who therefore can never leave me. Why did you want to see me? As long as you thought me handsome, you would have come back. I know you would have come back. But now that you know my ugliness, you'll run away forever. So I shall keep you here. Oh, mad Christine who wanted to see me, when my own father never saw me. My mother, so as to not see me, made me a present of my first mass. And then he dragged himself about on the floor and presently crawled away into his room, just like a snake. After a while, I began to hear the sound of the organ. He was playing that music I had seen, his opera, his Don Juan triumphant. At first, it seemed to be just one long, magnificent sob. But, slowly and gently, it began to express every emotion, every suffering of which mankind is capable. It intoxicated me. I opened the door which separated us. He stopped playing and rose to his feet, but dared not turn in my direction. I said to him, Eric, show me your face without fear. I swear that you are the most unhappy and sublime of men, and if ever again I shiver when I look at you, it is because I am thinking of the splendor of your genius. And he fell to my feet and kissed the hem of my dress, and he did not notice that I closed my eyes. What more can I tell you? I lied to him. I burnt his mask. I even managed so well that even when he did not sing, he tried to catch my eye like a dog sitting beside its master. And after a fortnight of that horrible captivity, he believed me when I said, I will come back. He frightens me terribly, yet I cannot hate him. That terrible cry of grief, that superhuman cry of grief attached me more to him than I ever thought it could. What if fear is not fear but love? Love of the most exquisite kind, the kind that most people do not admit, even to themselves, the kind that gives you a thrill, even to think about it.
Depending on the date of death, their names are listed. Fulton, Jackson, Nottingham, O'Rourke. In polished black granite from Bangalore, row upon row, forever in honor of those who died in the rice paddies, jungles, mountains, and fields. Oh, they are already beyond the confines of time, yet they are present in the hush of the valley, watched over by comrades in bronze on a nearby ridge looking down at the wall, almost in disbelief at the number of dead. Can they all be dead? Pritchard, Randall, Sheridan, Wolfe. Yes. The wall answers and answers. Yes. My selection, Between the Lines, by Kansas native Eugene E. Gromas, is a collection of 7 poems.